I'm Claire Walsh, 28, and I never imagined my own parents would betray me like this. It was a tense family dinner in Missoula, Montana, when their words struck like a slap. You are not part of this family anymore. Don't come back. My heart pounded as I stared at them, my fork frozen in midair. My mother's eyes were cold, my father's face expressionless, and my brother only smirked. Before I could react, they stood up, pointed to the door, and I stumbled out into the night. The lock clicked shut behind me, the key in my hand suddenly worthless. I pounded on the door, shouting, but no one answered. My entire world collapsed in that instant, cast out of my own home, no explanation, just their cruel dismissal. I checked into a cheap hotel, my mind spinning, trying to piece together why they had done this. Was it because I refused to join the family business, or because I dared to chase my dream of writing screenplays? A week later, my phone buzzed with an urgent email from their lawyer. We have a problem. Call immediately. My stomach tightened 1 week ago. They had coldly thrown me out and declared I was no longer family. And now, through their lawyer, they were begging for my help. I stared at the words on the screen and let out a bitter smile. Have you ever faced betrayal from the people you trusted most? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Growing up in Missoula, Montana meant living under the shadow of the Blair family name. My mom, Carol Blair, ran our family's event planning business like a general commanding an army. Weddings, corporate galas, you name it. She built it from scratch, and it was her pride and joy. Every dinner table conversation revolved around client lists, venue bookings, or profit margins. My dad, Richard Blair, handled the finances, always nodding along to Mom's orders, his silence louder than words. Then there was my brother, Sean Blair, 5 years older, the golden child who thrived in the business, soaking up Mom's praise like it was oxygen. Me, I was the odd one out, the dreamer who'd rather scribble screenplays than balance budgets. I'd always loved writing stories, scripts, anything that let me escape. But to my family, it was a waste of time. You need a real job, Mom would snap, her eyes narrowing whenever I mentioned pitching a script. Sean would smirk, tossing out lines like, keep dreaming, Claire, but don't expect a paycheck. Even Dad, who rarely spoke, would mutter, the business is what keeps us afloat. Their words stung, but I kept at it, sneaking off to a small studio in Missoula last year to pitch my first screenplay. It flopped hard. The rejection crushed me, but their laughter at the dinner table hurt worse. Told you, Sean said, pouring himself more wine. The only person who ever got me was my grandmother, Florence Walsh. Grandma Florence wasn't like the rest of them. She'd sit with me on her porch, her hands wrinkled but steady, teaching me how to craft dialogue that cut deep. Your stories matter, Claire, she'd say, her voice, warm eyes bright with belief. We'd spend hours breaking down old movies, analyzing every line, every twist. She'd jot notes in the margins of my scripts, her cursive neat and encouraging. Keep going, she'd whisper, no matter what they say. Those moments were my lifeline, the only time I felt seen. Grandma Florence passed 2 years ago, and her absence left a hole nothing could fill. But the pressure from Mom, Dad, and Sean never let up. The business was everything, our legacy, they called it. When I was a kid, I'd tag along to their events, carrying tablecloths or setting up chairs, but even then, I'd sneak away to write scenes in my notebook. Mom caught me once, her face twisting. You're not here to play Claire. This is our future. I was 12. By the time I hit my 20s, I'd moved out chasing my dream in Missoula's tiny film scene. But after the studio rejection, I had to move back home, tail between my legs. The looks on their faces said it all. I was a failure. Living back home was like walking on eggshells. Every day, Mom pushed me to join the business. You could be great at this, Claire. She'd say, her tone more command than encouragement. Sean would chime in. She'd mess it up, Mom. Stick to what we know. Dad just sipped his coffee, avoiding my eyes. I tried to keep writing, locking myself in my room, typing late into the night. But their voices echoed through the walls, client calls, event plans, Sean's smug laughter. I felt like an outsider in my own home, my scripts a secret I had to hide. Grandma Florence's words kept me going. She'd left me her old typewriter, a clunky thing I cherished. I'd run my fingers over its keys, remembering her lessons. A good story needs heart, Claire. Don't let anyone take that from you. But heart wasn't enough when Mom's expectations loomed like a storm. She'd barge into my room, tossing event proposals on my desk. Read these. Learn something useful. I'd nod, but my mind was elsewhere, lost in scenes I'd never finish. Sean's jabs grew sharper, too. Still writing your little movies, he'd say, leaning against the doorframe. Grow up, Claire? I started doubting myself. Maybe they were right. Maybe my dreams were just childish fantasies. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Grandma Florence's face, heard her voice urging me to fight. She'd believed in me when no one else did. And somehow that belief felt like the only thing holding me together. Back home, the pressure only got worse. Mom had one goal: get me into the family's event planning business. Claire, this is your chance to prove yourself, she said, shoving a stack of client proposals across the kitchen table. The Blair Events Company was her empire, and she expected me to fall in line. I'd sit through meetings, jotting down details for wedding receptions or corporate retreats, my mind drifting to the screenplay I'd been tweaking for months. At night, I'd lock my bedroom door, typing furiously, crafting scenes about characters who fought for their freedom. I'd send pitches to small studios in Missoula, hoping for a break. But every rejection email felt like a punch, and Mom's voice echoed in my head. This isn't a game, Claire. You need to grow up. Sean was no better. He'd barge into my room, glancing at my laptop screen. Still playing screenwriter, he'd taunt, his smirk sharp enough to cut. You're wasting everyone's time. He thrived in the business, charming clients and basking in Mom's approval. To him, my dreams were a joke, a distraction from the family legacy. Dad, as usual, stayed quiet, his eyes fixed on his coffee mug during our tense dinners, but his silence screamed agreement with Mom's demands. Just try it, Claire, he'd mutter once, barely looking up. The business is steady. Steady. That word felt like a chain. I kept writing, though. I'd stay up past midnight, refining dialogue, imagining my name on a movie poster. I'd landed a gig at a small studio in Missoula last spring, assisting on a low-budget film. It wasn't much, but it was mine, a foot in the door. I'd spend days on set, soaking up every detail, tweaking my own scripts during breaks. Then, 3 months ago, the studio lost funding. The project collapsed, and so did my job. I was devastated. My savings drained, my confidence shot. With nowhere else to go, I packed my bags and moved back home. The moment I stepped through the door, Mom's expectations hit like a tidal wave. You tried your little hobby, she said, her voice cold. Now it's time to join us for real. She handed me a company laptop already loaded with event spreadsheets. I wanted to scream to tell her I wasn't giving up. But I needed a roof over my head, so I nodded, swallowing my pride. Sean didn't let it slide. Back already, he'd say, leaning against the counter. Guess your Hollywood dreams didn't pan out. His words burned, but I refused to let him see me break. Every day was a battle. Mom would drag me to client meetings, introducing me as the new planner, while I forced a smile, my notebook full of script ideas hidden in my bag. I'd overhear Sean boasting about landing a big corporate event, his ego filling the room. Dad would nod along, never questioning, never defending me. At home, I'd escape to my room, pouring my frustration into my scripts. I wrote about a woman breaking free from a controlling family, her courage growing with every page. It felt like a mirror to my life, but the tension kept building. Mom started scheduling me for back-to-back events, leaving no time for writing. You're not pulling your weight? She'd snap when I missed a deadline, her eyes accusing. Sean would pile on, dropping snide remarks like, maybe if you focused, you'd actually contribute. I'd bite my tongue, but inside I was screaming. I'd sneak calls to a friend in the film industry asking about new opportunities, but the rejections kept coming. My dreams felt further away than ever, and the weight of their disapproval was crushing me. One night, I sat at my desk staring at my latest script. I'd written a scene where the heroine stood up to her family, her voice strong and unshaken. I wanted to be her, but I wasn't there yet. I closed my laptop, my hands trembling. Something had to give. That dinner changed everything. I sat across from Mom and Dad at the dining table, Sean smirking from his seat. The air was thick with tension, the clink of forks the only sound until Mom broke the silence. "Claire, we need to talk about your future," she said, her voice sharp as a knife. I knew what was coming. Another lecture about joining the family's event planning business. I'd heard it 100 times, but tonight I was done holding back. "I'm not giving up my screenwriting," I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "It's what I love." Mom's eyes narrowed. "Love doesn't pay the bills, Claire. This family built something real. You're throwing it away for a fantasy." I clenched my fists, my heart pounding. "It's not a fantasy. I'm good at this, Mom. I've been pitching scripts, getting feedback." Sean cut me off with a laugh. "Feedback? You mean rejections. Face it, Claire, you're not cut out for it." His words sliced through me, but I pushed back. "At least I'm trying, Sean. You just follow Mom's orders like a puppet." Dad, who'd been silent, finally spoke. "That's enough, Claire. You're embarrassing yourself." His voice was low, but it hit like a slap. I turned to him, desperate. "Dad, you know I've been working hard. Why can't you support me?" He looked away, his jaw tight. Mom stood her chair, scraping the floor. "This is your home, Claire, but only if you're part of this family. If you choose this nonsense over us, you're out." I froze. "What are you saying?" My voice shook. Mom's face was stone cold. "You are not part of this family anymore. Get out." Sean smirked, folding his arms. Dad just stared at his plate. I stood, my legs trembling, and grabbed my bag. "You can't mean that," I said. But Mom pointed to the door. "Now." I stumbled outside, the cold night air hitting me as the lock clicked behind me. I banged on the door, shouting, "Mom, Dad, open the door." Nothing. My key didn't work. They'd changed the locks. I ended up at a cheap hotel down the street, my mind racing. How could they do this? I tried calling Mom, then Dad, then Sean. No answer. My texts went unread. I sat on the stiff hotel bed, scrolling through my bank app to figure out my next move. That's when I saw it. My savings account, the one I shared with Sean for emergencies, was empty. $1,000 gone. I called the bank, my hands shaking. "The funds were withdrawn yesterday," the clerk said. "By Sean Blair, my brother. He'd taken everything." I stared at my phone, my chest tight with betrayal. Sean had always been petty, but this was a new low. I tried calling him again, leaving a voicemail. "Why, Sean? That was my money." No response. I thought about Grandma Florence, how she'd tell me to keep fighting. But right now, I felt like I'd lost everything, my home, my family, my savings. I curled up on the bed, my laptop open to my latest script, the only thing I had left. I wasn't giving up, but I didn't know how to keep going. A week later, my phone buzzed with a message. I was still holed up in that cheap Missoula hotel, my life packed into a suitcase, my savings gone. The email was from Robert Kane, the trust's lawyer, and the subject line stopped me. Cold, urgent, Florence Walsh. Trust. My heart skipped. Grandma Florence. I opened it, scanning the words. "You are entitled to assets under a trust established by Florence Walsh. Please contact me immediately." Assets trust. I hadn't heard about any trust. My hands shook as I dialed Robert's number. "Claire," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Your grandmother set up a trust for you before she passed. It guarantees your right to stay in the family home and provides funds for your screenwriting career." I nearly dropped the phone. The family home where Mom and Dad had just locked me out, and money for my writing. "There's more," Robert added. "Florence left a letter for you. I'll send it over with the trust documents." I agreed to meet him the next day, my mind racing. Why hadn't anyone told me about this? The documents arrived at the hotel, a thick envelope with legal jargon and a sealed letter in Grandma Florence's familiar cursive. I tore it open, my eyes stinging as I read her words. My dearest Claire, it began. I've always known your heart belongs to your stories. This trust is my way of protecting you from those who don't understand your mother, your father, your brother. They'll try to control you, but you are stronger than their doubts. The house is yours to claim, and the funds are for your dreams. Don't let them take that from you. I clutched the letter, tears streaming down my face. Grandma Florence had seen this coming, Mom's demands, Dad's silence, Sean's betrayal. She'd planned to shield me. The trust details were staggering. Florence had set aside enough to cover my living expenses and support my screenwriting for years. There was a clause ensuring I could stay in the family home no matter what Mom or Dad said. Robert explained over the phone. Your parents were notified of the trust when Florence passed, but they've ignored its terms. The lockout triggered an automatic review. I gripped the letter tighter. They knew, and they still kicked me out. I reread Florence's words, her voice echoing in my head. You are stronger than their doubts. She'd written about my childhood, how I'd sit on her lap scribbling stories while she smiled. Your mother wanted you to fit her mold, she wrote. But I saw your fire. This trust is your freedom. Every line felt like a lifeline pulling me out of the despair I'd been drowning in. But it also burned. Mom, Dad, and Sean had kept this from me, locked me out of my own home, stolen my savings. How could they? I called Robert again, my voice steadier now. What's the next step? He outlined a meeting to enforce the trust's terms, warning me it could get messy. Your family might fight this, he said. They've been managing the trust and there are discrepancies. Discrepancies. My stomach twisted. Had they tampered with it, I thought of Sean's smug face, the missing $1,000 from my account. This wasn't just about the house or money, it was about control. I spent the night poring over the trust documents, highlighting clauses, making notes. Florence had thought of everything: legal protections, funding timelines, even a provision for legal fees if the trust was challenged. I felt her strength in every word, her belief in me. But doubt crept in too. Confronting Mom, Dad, and Sean would mean tearing open old wounds. Could I do this? The meeting room felt like a battlefield. I sat across from Mom, Dad, and Sean, their faces a mix of defiance and unease. Robert Kane, the trust's lawyer, stood at the head of the table, his briefcase open, papers neatly stacked. My hands gripped Grandma Florence's letter, its words fueling my resolve. This was it, the moment to take back what was mine. Robert cleared his throat, his voice steady. We're here to address the Florence Walsh Trust and its mismanagement. Mom's eyes narrowed. Mismanagement? That's absurd. Sean leaned back, arms crossed, his smirk barely hiding his nerves. Dad stared at the table, silent as ever. Robert didn't flinch. The trust was established to ensure Claire's right to the family home and funds for her screenwriting career, he said, sliding a document forward. Yet $150,000 was withdrawn without Claire's consent and used to upgrade Blair Events Company. Sean scoffed. That's a lie. The company needed those funds. But his voice wavered. I locked eyes with him, my anger flaring. You took my savings too, Sean. $1,000 gone. Now this. He shifted uncomfortably, saying nothing. Robert continued presenting bank records. These transactions trace back to Carol and Sean Blair, approved by Richard Blair. The trust explicitly prohibits personal use of its funds. Mom's face reddened. We built that company from nothing. Claire doesn't deserve a dime if she's not contributing. Her words stung, but I was done letting them hurt me. Contributing? I snapped. You locked me out of my own home, Mom. Grandma Florence wanted me to have it. Dad finally spoke, his voice low. We thought we were doing what's best for the family. I shook my head. No, Dad. You did what's best for you. Robert laid out more evidence: emails, financial statements, proof of the family's spending on new office equipment and marketing for the company. Every page was a betrayal, a confirmation that they'd known about the trust and ignored it. "This is a clear violation," Robert said. "Claire is entitled to the house and the remaining funds, plus damages for the misappropriated amount." Sean slammed his hand on the table. "You're not taking anything, Claire. You're a failure who will waste it on your stupid scripts." His outburst only strengthened my resolve. I stood my voice firm. "I'm done with this family. I want the apartment in Missoula as the trust allows. I'll take the funds Grandma Florence left for my writing and we're through." Mom gasped. "You can't just walk away." But I held her gaze. "You walked away first when you locked that door." Robert nodded, jotting down notes. "Claire's proposal aligns with the trust's terms. The apartment's deed can be transferred and the funds will be released to her account." He turned to Mom, Dad, and Sean. "You'll also face an audit for the $150,000. Repayment may be required." Sean's smirk vanished and Mom's face went pale. Dad just looked defeated, his hands folded tightly. I felt a mix of triumph and pain. Grandma Florence's trust was my lifeline, but facing my family like this hurt more than I expected. "You could have supported me," I said, my voice breaking. "Instead, you stole from me." Mom tried to interrupt, but I raised my hand. "No, I'm done listening. I'm taking what's mine and moving on." Robert handed me a pen to sign the preliminary agreement, his expression calm but approving. As I signed, I thought of Grandma Florence's words. "You are stronger than their doubts." She'd known they'd try to break me, but she'd given me the tools to fight back. The apartment would be my fresh start, a place to write without their judgment. The funds would let me pitch my scripts, maybe even produce a short film. I looked at Mom, Dad, and Sean one last time. Their silence said it all: they'd lost control. Walking out of that room, I felt lighter, but the weight of losing my family lingered. I didn't want their apologies or their excuses. I wanted freedom. 2 weeks later, the papers were signed. Robert Kane called to confirm the Florence Walsh Trust had finalized the transfer of a Missoula apartment to my name. Mom, Dad, and Sean had no choice but to agree, backed into a corner by the legal weight of Grandma Florence's wishes. Their signatures on the agreement felt like a surrender, but I knew they'd fought until the last moment. Robert's voice was steady over the phone. "The trust's funds covered the apartment purchase, and the remaining balance is yours for your screenwriting. The family's control over the trust is terminated." I stood in the empty apartment, sunlight streaming through the windows, keys in my hand. It was a small one-bedroom place, nothing fancy, but it was mine. No more hotel rooms, no more locked doors. I set my laptop on the kitchen counter, imagining late nights writing scripts without Mom's lectures or Sean's sneers. But the victory was bittersweet. I'd won, but at the cost of my family. The Blair Events Company was crumbling under the fallout. Robert had warned them about the audit for the $150,000 they'd siphoned from the trust. News spread fast in Missoula. Clients pulled out wary of the scandal. A local paper ran a story about the lawsuit, hinting at financial misconduct. I didn't read past the headline. I didn't need to. The company's reputation was tanking, and with it, Mom's pride and Sean's arrogance. Dad has always stayed out of it, probably burying himself in paperwork to avoid the mess. I blocked their numbers that same week. Mom tried texting once, a curt message about sorting this out. I deleted it without replying. Sean left a voicemail, his voice dripping with resentment. "You think you're better than us, Claire? Good luck on your own." I erased it, my hands steady. Dad didn't reach out at all. That hurt the most. His silence louder than any argument. I didn't want their apologies or their anger. Grandma Florence had given me a way out, and I was taking it. Settling into the apartment took time. I bought a second-hand desk, a cheap lamp, and a few plants to make the place feel alive. Every morning, I'd sit by the window sipping coffee, typing scenes for a new script. It was about a woman rebuilding her life after betrayal, her strength growing with every step. The words flowed easier now, unburdened by the weight of family expectations. I sent pitches to small studios, my confidence creeping back. A producer in Bozeman emailed interested in a short film concept. It wasn't Hollywood, but it was a start. Sometimes I'd find myself staring at Grandma Florence's letter tucked into a drawer for safekeeping. Her words were my anchor. You are stronger than their doubts. I'd trace the ink, remembering her warm smile, her belief in me. She'd known Mom would try to mold me, that Sean would tear me down, that Dad would stand by and do nothing. She'd built this safety net, and I was finally free to use it. But freedom came with shadows. Late at night, when the apartment was quiet, I'd feel the ache of what I'd lost. Not the family they'd become, but the one I'd hoped for. The one where Mom might have cheered for my scripts. Where Dad might have spoken up. Where Sean might have been a brother instead of a rival. I pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on the future. The Trust's funds gave me breathing room to write, to chase my dreams without scraping by. I wasn't rich, but I was enough. A month in, I got a call from Robert. The audit was moving forward, and the family faced hefty fines. Blair Events might not survive. I thanked him, my voice calm. Their downfall wasn't my goal, but it was their consequence. I hung up, opened my laptop, and started typing. The story wasn't finished, not mine, not the one on my screen. But for the first time, I knew I'd write my own ending. Months passed, and my world grew brighter. The Missoula apartment had become my sanctuary, its walls lined with notes for my latest script. I'd been pouring everything into my writing, and it paid off when I got an email from the Missoula Film Collective. My script, a drama about a woman breaking free from her past, had been selected for their talent development program. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. This was real, a chance to work with professionals, refine my craft, and maybe see my story on screen. The program kicked off at a local theater where I met Levi Carter, a young director with a sharp eye for character, and Tara Nguyen, a producer with a knack for spotting potential. Your script's got heart, Levi told me over coffee after our first workshop. It's raw, but it's honest. Tara nodded, her eyes bright. We need more voices like yours, Claire. Keep pushing. Their words felt like a lifeline, pulling me into a community that valued my work. We started meeting regularly, swapping ideas, critiquing drafts, and planning projects. A few weeks later, the program's director called me in. Claire, we're inviting you to pitch your script to a panel of producers at the Northwest Film Forum, she said. My stomach flipped. A pitch. To real producers, I spent days preparing, rehearsing in front of my bathroom mirror, channeling Grandma Florence's belief in me. You are enough. Her letter reminded me, still framed on my desk. The day of the pitch, I stood in a small conference room in Seattle, my voice steady as I shared my story. The producers leaned forward, asking questions, taking notes. One of them, a woman with sharp glasses, smiled. This could be something special, she said. Let's talk next steps. I walked out feeling like I could fly. Back in Missoula, Levi and Tara became my anchors. Levi would drag me to late-night diners, sketching shot lists on napkins and debating character arcs. Tara helped me navigate the business side, connecting me with local filmmakers and teaching me how to budget a short film. We'd spend weekends in my apartment brainstorming over takeout, laughing until our sides hurt. They weren't just colleagues, they were my chosen family, the kind I'd never had with Mom, Dad, or Sean. With them, I didn't have to prove myself. They saw me, not my failures. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking about my old family. A news article mentioned Blair Events Company losing another major client, their reputation still reeling from the lawsuit. I felt a pang, wondering if Mom ever regretted her words, or if Dad wished he'd spoken up. Sean's social media had gone quiet, his usual bravado replaced by silence. But I didn't reach out. I'd made my choice, and they'd made theirs. Freedom meant letting go, and I was learning to embrace it. The talent development program pushed me to grow. I rewrote my script, tightening dialogue, deepening characters. Levi offered to direct a short version, and Tara secured a small grant to fund it. We shot in Missoula using local actors and locations by the river. Watching my words come to life on set, I felt a surge of pride. This was what I'd fought for, a chance to tell stories that mattered. The short film got accepted to a regional festival, and the three of us celebrated with cheap wine in my apartment, toasting to new beginnings. Through it all, I kept coming back to Grandma Florence's lesson. My value didn't come from others' approval. It came from within, from the stories I told, the work I did, the people I chose to keep close. Levi and Tara reminded me of that every day, their support a steady foundation. I wasn't running from my past anymore. I was building something new. Standing on my apartment balcony watching the sunset over the Clark Fork River, I felt whole. My story wasn't finished, but for the first time, I knew I was writing it on my own terms.